Yo, this is Bench Gamer here. So, if you've been watching my content for the past year or so and following me, you probably know that I've been pretty down on Honkai Star recently. I think it was around the time that 2.3 or 2.4 rolled around and the Penacony story ended. It gave a lot of people a lot more leeway to talk about the things that they didn't like about Honkai Star. In fact, I feel like a lot more people, primarily Ryukyu Sensei, have been talking more about it more recently, whereas I just made a video immediately after the 2.3 patch, I think, talking about the things that I didn't like about Penacony's story. And I actually think that they have done a better job wrapping up the story in 2.7 than they did in 2.3. If the 2.7 story came at the end of Penacony, I think that'll be a lot better in terms of my impression of the story than the 2.3 patch was. So the Penacony story has actually gotten better in my opinion. And I think 2.7 did a very decent job of wrapping it up and giving us a transition to go to Amphoreus in the future. And I've said in the community post in the past as well that I was not too hyped about Amphoreus. But if the title of this video is anything to judge by, as I'm sure it's going to be something like very clickbaity, I'm wrong about Honkai Star, or Amphoreus looks amazing, or, I'm a dumbass and I actually am excited for Amphoreus now. And I am. I am actually excited, or at least more excited for Amphoreus now than before. And that's for one primary reason. And this is something that I feel like Zenless Zone Zero and Genshin Impact have kind of fallen into a trap of, which is not having any real major important male characters to speak of. Zenless Zone Zero is obviously very heavy in terms of the female characters, and Genshin Impact as well. Traditionally has been more of a 7-to-3 ratio for female to male characters, but with Natlan, one of the few things that I would actually criticize Natlan for that I actually felt was more prominent in Natlan than other regions is that there is just a very distinct lack of male characters. There's Auroran, but he's 4-star, so nobody really cares about him. And he's kind of like an attachment to Sitlali, if anything else. And, or maybe even, I don't know, Capitano, if you want to, if you ship that way. But Auroran just isn't that important in the grand scheme of things when it comes to enjoying a character, because there's only so much that a 4-star can do. And from what I see, Sitlali is basically Auroran, but better when it comes to traversal. And Natlan characters are very heavy on traversal, so obviously Auroran is just a side thing. And then there's Kanich. I always get Kachina and Kanich kind of mixed up, but yeah, Kanich. He is a very interesting character from a gameplay standpoint, but even as like somebody who is very, I'm very happy with the way that Natlan's story is turning out. But I have to admit that Kanich, I feel like he doesn't really do anything very important in the main story. It kind of feels like they just side. Yansan and Kanich in particular, I think, are the ones that get left behind in the main story. So again, the only male 5-star character also doesn't feel like he doesn't really do anything in the main story. In the side quest, I think he was okay, I guess. I think his participation in fixing Snorlax's problem, it was okay, but I also feel like in his tribal quest, he wasn't even that important there. I was more interested in his like little pet dragon more than anything else. But side tangent aside, Honkai Star is really doing a much better job, even compared to Wuthering Waves, I would say. Like, we've already seen the new Wuthering Waves characters. There you have it. We have seen 5 new Wuthering Waves characters. Only one of them is male. And I watched the trailer for the 2.0 content. He was maybe in the trailer for like 5-6 seconds at most, maybe 10 seconds. So it's very obvious that Wuthering Waves is probably also going down. But at least when it comes to the main story, it feels like they're going down the Zenless and Genshin path of not really focusing that much on the male characters. And this is something that I have actually noticed Honkai Star doing a lot better, which is just focusing on male characters, even if the ratio for them is not necessarily that much better. If you look at the new Amphoreus characters, right, there's like 8 revealed so far. There's Aglia, Tribi, Anaxa, Hyacine, Mide, Cypher, Castoris, and Phynon, and only 3 of them out of 8 are male characters, which is already better than the other major gacha games, right? Anaxa, he's a guy. Mide, he's a guy, and then Phynon is obviously a guy. So that's at least 3 out of 8 characters. But more than anything else, I feel like even in Penacony, they gave the male characters so much more content compared to the female characters, relatively speaking, for story content. It felt like Aventurine and Sunday really got the lion's share of the storytelling in Penacony. The only female character I felt like that actually got any degree of development that I feel like warrant being called a main character is probably Acheron. Firefly, she turned out to be not I wouldn't say not important, but she definitely could have done a lot more on screen compared to the male characters. Adventuring felt like he got an entire patch all to himself, and Sunday felt like he got another entire patch all to himself. So all the female characters, maybe it's because there are so many female characters that they all have to share the same screen time with each other. I think that might actually be a problem. And it might be why the female characters, not because they're female, but because there are so many of them, have to share screen time with each other, whereas the male characters don't. They all get their own patches. So I feel like that might be something that is happening here because obviously Amphoreus is very much based on Honkai Impact 3rd, and Phynon and Mide are XPs of characters. I think Mide is the XP of a character called Kelpus, although that could be wrong. I feel like Kelpus might be the XP of another character, or another XP is somebody else. He might be an XP of Gilgamesh if more than anything. So it just feels like them being XPs and Phynon being an XP of Kevin, I think, who was the main bad guy at the end of Honkai Impact 3rd Part 1, means that they will definitely get way more screen time. They will get way more focus than any other character. If it was just an individual, completely separated plot from any other story. Because there is already a backlog, like a background, like body of lore that they have to work with, means that they are warranted, they are guaranteed plot relevance, is basically what I'm saying. So maybe the fact that Honkai Impact 3rd is like this background, like library of knowledge that they have to work with is actually a good thing for people who want male characters. Because even though it doesn't have playable male characters, they do play a really relevant role there. I've noticed from my very small amount of time playing that game, it felt like Welt obviously was very important. Kevin was very important. So maybe the fact that they weren't playable in Honkai Impact 3rd means that they actually get more screen time. They feel like it feels like they are more motivated to give male characters more screen time in Honkai Star Rail than the female characters. So that's just a bit of my ramblings. There's also some rumors. If you watch this video by Zome, he covers basically a leak that was not taken that seriously in the past that said that Genshin Impact was going to have more female characters than male characters going forward because of financial issues, and they are more focused on getting basically incels, or I don't know, people who like waifus, to pull for their characters more so than the female players, which I think would be very dumb if that was the case, because a lot of the people who I feel are interested in Genshin, at least at this point, at least the plurality of them are probably like female players of all sorts. So it just feels like female players are a bit not overrepresented, but they are a very significant portion of the people who actually talk about Genshin Impact. So I feel like it would be a really bad thing for them to do, to just focus primarily on female characters, but that is what the leak is saying. I forgot what the leaker's actual name is, but I remember there was like HXG Diluc, I think, was talking about how the leak was not reliable, but it does seem like Natlan is definitely, it does check out that Natlan has less male characters than before. And I think that would be a very disappointing thing going forward. It's not that I'd like male characters more than female characters, but it's always been like an unsaid thing that Genshin Impact was a standout compared to other gacha games because it had a relatively more fair ratio of female to male characters. And I think that has actually moved on to Honkai Star Rail, whereas Genshin Impact is relying more on female characters now, if Natlan's got anything to judge by, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I actually like Moika. A lot of people are saying that her outfit is outrageous, that it's too sexualized, it feels too modern or anything. I don't give a shit. I think Moika looks amazing. I think the female characters in Natlan look pretty good. Jessica, I don't even mind her like half pants thing anymore. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the female designs. It's just that, maybe add a bit more tall male characters at some point. And I think that does it. I also feel like Amphoreus is doing a bit better in terms of using multiple different character models. Like if you look at the different characters, right? Tribi is like a small kitty character, Aglia is a tall female character, and Nax is a tall male character. Hyacinth seems to be like a teen female model, the same as like small Herta, I guess, and what's her name? I forgot her name, but basically the teenage female models, right? Fuxuan is like her size. So these are all different models, and Mide is probably another tall male model. Cypher is going to be made like the same size as Topaz. Cypher is going to be like a cat girl. And then Castorius is probably going to be another maid-sized character, the same as Topaz. And Final is going to be another tall male character. So I think the one missing here is the teenage male model. But all the other models seems to be represented, which I felt was not the case as much with Penacony. It seems like they kind of just abandoned the small female characters that were only in 1.0. They basically only Hook and what's her name? Hook and Dragon Girl. I forgot what her name was. The one that was on the general banner. Nobody uses her anymore, so nobody knows who she is anymore at this point. So that's basically it in terms of why I'm more excited about Amphoreus. I also feel like the trailer for Amphoreus was actually pretty hype. I'm not gonna show it to you here. I'm too lazy for that, and you can just search it up yourself. I'm pretty sure you've already watched it. Anyways, this is Bench Gamer signing out. I am very happy with maybe not so much the power creep. I feel like I'm coming to accept the fact that power creep is just going to be a part and parcel of the Honkai Star Rail experience, because it's a relatively simple turn-based system. There's not much you can do to make it more complicated other than to introduce new factors to account for that will be solved by new characters. So there's always going to be power creep. It is what it is. It's a turn-based gacha game. Skill really doesn't play too much of a part in the gameplay experience. And yeah, I still like the story of Honkai Star Rail. It's just that with the event of Penacony's end, I think a lot of the problems and issues with it did come to a fore. And I think there was a lot of backlash to it, especially from people who weren't very happy with Firefly's role in the story. Because like Penacony was being promoted as this like holier than thou, much better than Shinjo Lofu, much better than Genshit's story. So it's kind of like this contrast between Honkai Star Rail is the best thing in the world versus Honkai Star Rail being the worst thing in the world. And now that we have Wuthering Waves, another game to stand for, I feel like a lot of people who hated Genshin Impact moved on from Honkai Star to Wuthering Waves so that they can have not so much hate Genshin Impact, but to like support Wuthering Waves in contrast to the previous bad thing. And now, not only are people moving on from hating Genshin Impact, they're moving on to hating Hoyoverse as a whole, which is really funny, I think, because there are still people who very much like Zenless Zone Zero and are still just fine with hating Genshin Impact, just Genshin, not the other Hoyoverse games. So it's really interesting that this dynamic that has come to exist. There's the Genshin haters, the Hoyo haters, and also the Kuro haters. Not saying that any of them are better than each other. This is Bench Gamer signing out. I am probably going to enjoy Amphoreus. I hope that they fix some of the things that I criticized them for. I don't think that power creep is going to get any better. It would be really nice if it did. I have some hope that they did release Sunday, who boosted Jingyuan a lot. He is actually usable now. Unfortunately, in Pure Fiction, I actually tested it out, but Jingyuan is still worse than Raiden Shogun for Pure Fiction, even with his best in slot team. So it is what it is, right? He was a 1.0 character, I think. Yeah, he was a 1.0 character. It is to be expected. And more so than the power creep, please just make the story like more compact. Make the story more action-packed. Make the story easier to understand. Make the characters speak in a more relatively normal person kind of way, if that makes any sense, without it being dragged on forever. Make them speak like Zenless Zone Zero characters. That's all I'm asking for. I don't even think Zenless Zone Zero characters have that good of a dialogue. Just please, it is at least more natural-esque. Anyways, I think I've ranted enough. This is Bench Gamer signing out. I'll see you guys later. Bye.